In the basement stacks at Ohio State University in Columbus, I opened a bound 1998 volume of environmental entomology. The pages smelled like dust and glue. A yellow note marked one paper by Peter Landolt. It held one sentence the spray business has spent 28 years hoping you would never read, with no apparent effect on honeybees. That line referred to Yellowjacket traps. It referred to Heptyl butyrate. It referred to a lure that pulled pest wasps hard and left bees alone. That paper was published 28 years ago. You have never heard of it. That is not an accident. I sat there for almost an hour. I kept staring at one line, then another. The paper described yellowjackets arriving in large numbers. It described honeybees not responding the same way. It was calm, dry, clinical, but underneath it sat a much bigger idea. You have been taught to fight the visible insect. You see one wasp, you swing at it, you buy a can, you blast the nest you can find. Then the pressure returns. Another colony keeps feeding, another ground nest keeps working, another worker keeps lifting meat from your table and flying home with the problem still alive. That is the scam. Not because the can never kills anything, because the can keeps you focused on symptoms. Yellowjackets are social. They feed each other. They cut, they carry, they share. They distribute food through the colony like a living pipeline. If you target the root, you target the nest you cannot see. Nobody told you. Not your builder, not your contractor, not the man who sold you a 40-foot stream of instant victory. And the number that would not leave my head was 96. Not $96, not 96 traps. A documented 96% reduction in foraging pressure after a single baiting cycle in fieldwork. I read that result once, then twice, then a third time. By then, I knew the old paper was not trivia. It was a doorway. So here is the promise. If you understand how yellowjackets feed, you stop reacting. If you understand how honeybees do not, you stop guessing. Then you start thinning colony pressure around your home with a system that costs less than a dinner out. University fieldwork recorded reductions of 74 to 96% after properly timed baiting. And yes, this works even if your house was built 50 years ago. It still works if you live in a city. It still works if you have never done this before. It still works if you do not have land. Stay with me. Because what I found in Ohio uses the same physics of scent, hunger, and transfer. I saw the same logic again in Holmes County. Older people used it to protect food long before modern spray aisles existed. What that document describes is still working today. You just had to know where to look. The science is brutally simple. From spring into midsummer, yellowjacket workers are hunting protein first. They need it for larvae. Later in the season, the colony shifts toward sugar. The University of California Integrated Pest Management Program explains that cycle plainly. Spring and midsummer mean protein. Late summer means sweets. That one biological switch changes the entire strategy. You are not baiting an adult snack. You are baiting a delivery route. Think about your car radiator. You do not cool the engine by touching every hot part. You move coolant through the path the engine already uses. A worker yellowjacket does the same thing with food. She cuts it, she carries it, she shares it, she feeds larvae, then larvae feed adults through trophallaxis. One forager becomes a transport line. Oregon State University Extension says Heptyl butyrate is highly effective for yellowjackets and does not attract honeybees. The United States Department of Agriculture Agricultural Research Service reported in 2010 on Peter Landolt's attractants. Those lures came from fermented molasses compounds. They drew yellowjackets, hornets, and paper wasps. Beneficial insects, including honeybees, were not attracted to the trap. That is not folklore. That is laboratory work turned into field hardware. The efficiency gap is even sharper. In the 2017 University of California field study, 3 selected bait stations were estimated to affect at least 18 different colonies. Call that a field coefficient of transfer. Roughly 6 colonies influenced for every one station cluster observed. Compare that with one visible nest at best for every one aerosol strike. One root multiplies, the other chases. Then the performance numbers land. University of California work used polyacrylamide hydrogel charged with chicken juice. It produced immediate reductions of roughly 74 to 96% in monitored Yellowjacket activity. The researchers used an action threshold of 10 Yellowjackets per trap per day. Stations were spaced about 50 to 80 meters apart. Those are measured results. That is system behavior. That gap represents a massive market in sprays, emergency visits, service contracts, and seasonal panic buying every year, and that is why you have never heard of this. Here is the part most people miss. Honeybees and Yellowjackets do not read the same menu in the same way. A honeybee forager is built to chase nectar and pollen. A Yellowjacket worker in the growth phase is built to hunt meat for larvae. That is why the lure matters. That is why the season matters. Sugar water beside a hive can become a disaster. A low-protein phase station can stay almost invisible to bees. The difference is not magic. It is appetite. Your body already understands this principle. When you sweat, evaporation carries heat away along the path your skin already uses. You do not cool yourself by yelling at the sun. You use a mechanism that already exists. Yellowjacket control works the same way. You do not control a social insect by winning one tiny battle at the picnic table. You control it by entering the food loop the colony already trusts. The colony does the transport for you. It does the sorting for you. It even does the distribution for you. That is why a small amount, placed at the right moment, can outperform a much louder response. I saw another detail in Holmes County that stayed with me. The stations were never hanging where visitors would notice them first. They were tucked beside fence runs, under edge shade, and near the line where yard became brush. Eli told me that if you make the wasp cross open ground toward your doorway, you already waited too long. You intercept it where it is comfortable. You let the lane become the trap. That sounded simple. Then I realized how few modern people are taught to think in lanes at all. We think in products. They think in movement. The old paper trail supports that mindset. USDA Agriculture Handbook 335, published in 1967, still listed certain wasps as natural enemies of honeybees. It did not spell out a full station blueprint, but it proved the pressure was known. The 1998 environmental entomology paper proved selective attraction was measurable. The 2017 University of California work proved colony-level suppression could be dramatic. Put those 3 dates in a line and the pattern becomes obvious. The problem was known. The root was known. The public habit stayed the same anyway. That is how profitable ignorance works. It does not need a villain in a dark room. It only needs the easy method to stay visible and the effective method to stay scattered. One method comes with shelf space, bright labels, and a television vocabulary. The other comes with timing, patience, and a university PDF. One feels dramatic, the other feels plain. The market will always favor the dramatic method first because dramatic methods sell themselves while quiet methods end the need for drama. So when you build this at home, think like a reader of patterns, not a buyer of promises. In spring and early summer, think protein. In late summer, remember the shift towards sugar when colonies slow their brood growth. If you run mixed stations, separate the functions. Keep your protein phase station for transfer work. Keep a distinct lure or drowning trap for nuisance adults near human activity. Do not blur the two. Blurred systems catch the wrong insects and teach you the wrong lesson. Clear systems teach you where the pressure is actually coming from. The first time I walked a lane outside Mount Hope in Holmes County, Ohio, in late August, I expected noise. I expected compressors. I expected some machine doing the work. What I found instead was fly sound around calves. There was still heat over gravel. There was no Yellowjacket pressure near a wash line behind the house. I stood there for 11 minutes, waiting for the usual angry hum around the eaves. It never came. Later that afternoon, I talked with Eli beside a milkhouse door the color of old cream. He pointed past the bee yard and told me, "You feed the greedy ones away first." Then he showed me the placement. The stations hung low, they sat near the ground, they were well off the hives. Fresh bait, shade, distance. No sweets near the bees. No trap hanging beside the porch like decoration. His family had used that seasonal logic for 4 generations. He traced it back through people from the Palatinate and through kin from Cantonburn. They brought bee scents with them. They brought orchard scents too. I did not need a speech. I could hear the result. There was no frantic swatting, no kids running from cans, no constant buzzing around the door. What convinced me was not romance, it was repetition. I had seen the same principle in extension literature. Penn State Extension still says traps can thin foraging workers. They fail if you use the wrong bait or bad placement. Oregon State says keep traps low. It also says keep them at least 20 feet away from beehives. That way, Yellowjackets do not discover the hives while investigating the trap. That knowledge never disappeared. It was filed away, it was waiting, pull back even farther, and the pattern gets older. In ancient Egypt, workers used ash near stored grain because dust dehydrates insect bodies and disrupts respiration. Egyptologist Linda Evans has pointed to that practice through archaeological evidence and ancient environmental records. It is simple. Attack the pathway the pest already uses. Do not fight the whole landscape. Now, move to the Roman world. Fermented fruit and wine residues were already known as powerful insect draw points. Modern attractant science later isolated that same odor logic in chemical form. Peter Landolt's review in the Journal of Chemical Ecology traced successful social wasp attractants back to volatiles from fermented sweetbaits. Different century, same lesson. Fermentation talks, scavengers answer. Then moved north into medieval German orchard country and into the Swiss cantons. Apiaries, fruit stores, and summer kitchens all taught the same calendar. Protein draws spring workers, sugar draws late workers, distance protects bees. Timing matters more than force. Every civilization that mastered summer pests arrived at the same answer independently. The Amish never forgot. They carried it from the Palatinate and Cantonburn to Pennsylvania and Ohio, roughly 280 years ago. They kept building it because it worked. They also never needed anyone's permission to do what made sense. Now comes the part that should make you angry. The origin point is not mysterious. In 1956, S.C. Johnson launched Raid, a water-based aerosol insecticide, right when post-war home chemistry was being marketed as modern housekeeping. What did that model protect? Repeat purchase, repeat application, repeat fear. A reusable lure station and a seasonal colony-level method threatened a consumer habit worth millions then and billions now. The mechanism was not dramatic, it was efficient. The Science History Institute documents how companies pushed new household pesticides through magazines like Good Housekeeping, McCall's, and Ladies' Home Journal. The message was clean: press the button, watch the bug drop. That image became the manual people actually learned. Meanwhile, the deeper knowledge stayed technical. Trap papers lived in journals, extension notes lived in county offices, species-specific bait logic stayed seasonal and local. The store shelf reached farther than the bulletin drawer, so visible spray became common sense, while colony transfer stayed specialist knowledge, not because it failed, because it did not generate the same buying habit. Then regulation froze the pattern. Oregon State University Extension states the rule plainly. Only labeled insecticides are approved for Yellowjacket bait traps. Using any other chemical that way violates state and federal pesticide laws. In California research, the only registered bait toxicant for years was microencapsulated S-fenvalerate. University of California researchers called its performance marginal because it is repellent and fast-acting. Read that slowly. The chemistry allowed inside the legal box was the weaker one. Who benefited? Media sold the fear and took ad money. Government ran pesticide review systems partly funded by registrant fees under the Pesticide Registration Improvement Act. Industry groups protected label power and market access. Those links are documented, they are not invented. so the result was predictable. An entire field of practical knowledge disappeared from ordinary household practice, common seasonal know-how, and everyday problem solving. Not because it failed, because it was not profitable. And the modern continuation is easy to see. In 2023, the National Pest Management Association described its push for pesticide preemption in the Farm Bill. It also described its work with a bipartisan lobbying firm. Open Secrets shows CropLife America lobbying on pesticide legislation and policy. Open Secrets also shows the agribusiness sector spending $179,733,652 on federal lobbying in 2023. The motive is clear. Control the approved tools, control the labels, control the sale. The household insecticide economy tied to that habit is worth billions. Every alternative station you hang is a can not sold. Every season you solve with transfer instead of panic spray is a refill that never happens. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people with land, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. You don't need to buy equipment. You need one thing they already have or can easily get: a yard, a drill, a bottle, a weekend. Start with placement. Most people ruin the whole system right here. Put your first station 24 to 32 feet from the area you want to protect. Never set it on the patio table. Never hang it beside a hive entrance. Yellowjackets forage low, so suspend the station only 18 to 24 inches above ground. If you are covering a typical suburban lot, use 3 stations. If your property edge is longer, space them 55 to 75 feet apart. That keeps you in the home scale range of the 50 to 80 meter research pattern. Build the shell from a 2-inch Schedule 40 PVC cleanout body, an 8-inch SDR 35 sleeve, or a thick HDPE jar. Drill 4 entry holes at 3/8 inch. Use a 15-degree inward funnel cut from PET plastic or thin polycarbonate. Inside, mount a removable polypropylene cup for bait. Wrap that cup with 1/8 inch galvanized hardware cloth so birds and pets cannot reach it. Hang the unit with polypropylene line or a 10-inch galvanized hanger under full shade. Direct sun dries bait fast. Begin with monitoring only. A commercial Heptyl Butyrate lure is the cleanest start because Oregon State says it does not attract honeybees. If bees are not nearby, use 1 ounce of canned chicken or whitefish in the inner cup. Use it during the spring protein phase. Replace it every 12 to 18 hours. Fresh meat matters. UCIPM says yellowjackets are not attracted to rotting meat. Freshness is not decoration, it is function. When your counts hit the action threshold, about 10 yellowjackets per trap per day, you move from observation to control. Here is the warning. Homemade toxic mixes are not optional to avoid. Unlabeled chemistry causes legal trouble, creates non-target risk, and often repels workers before they carry enough material home. If you move beyond monitoring, use only a legally labeled Yellowjacket bait toxicant exactly as directed in your state. More is worse. Oregon State warns that excess insecticide may repel the wasps. Keep the station 2-zoned. If you are using a drowning lower chamber for extra captures, place 12 ounces of water below the bait cup. Then add 6 drops of unscented dish soap. Do not wet the protein. Wet bait spoils fast. Dry transfer lasts longer. Refresh stations every 2 to 3 days in peak season, then once a week after pressure falls. Replace cracked plastic every 3 to 5 years. Hardware cloth is not optional. Chicken wire causes reach-through, pet interference, and bait loss. The costs stay low. PVC parts run $7 to $14 each. Hardware cloth costs $9 to $18 for enough inserts to build several stations. Polypropylene cups cost $4 to $8 a pack. Line, hangers, and funnels add $6 to $12. Even with 3 bodies and a proper lure, most home setups land between $46 and $118 total. You can build them in one Saturday morning. The first station takes around 40 minutes, and the result is physical. On a 95-degree day in late August, sweet drinks usually bring a cloud to the table. This setup pulls the traffic outward. It starts draining workers through the lanes you gave them. It requires attention once a week after the surge breaks. Your conventional routine costs $8 to $14 per can. Across a heavy season, that becomes $240 to $480 if you keep chasing symptoms. It also gives you one visible nest at a time before the landfill takes the empty metal. This costs $46 to $118 total. It lasts 3 to 5 years. Your choice. Everything I have covered across this channel is in one place. Root cellar airflow, vinegar laundry rinse, gravity-fed rain catchment, step by step, season by season, room by room, in the order the families actually use it. The link is in the description. But stay here, because what Eli showed me beside that bee yard is the part nobody is talking about yet. Because the real value is not the trap. It is the way you start seeing systems. You stop reacting. You start reading the season. You stop buying the visible answer. You start using the hidden root. The Yellowjacket does not beat you with power. It beats you with habit. Break the habit and the whole picture changes. That pattern shows up everywhere. Someone sells you the symptom fix. The durable answer gets pushed into an extension file, or a library stack, or a county memo, or an old man's sentence beside a fence. Then you are told the older answer disappeared because it was crude. It did not disappear. It was written out of the manual. It was waiting. The Persians did not read this in a textbook. They watched storage, heat, and insect pressure. The Romans did not read this in a textbook. They watched fermentation and flight paths. Eli did not read this in a textbook. He paid attention to what the season was already doing. And once you see that, you start seeing more. You notice why a bee-safe lure stayed a specialty item. You notice why label power can matter more than performance. You notice why the easiest advice is always the advice that brings you back to the shelf. Not because it failed, because recurring customers are worth more than finished problems. So yes, this is about Yellowjackets, but it is also about whether you will trust a plain mechanism when that plain mechanism threatens a profitable habit. Protein in the growth phase, sugar later, distance from the hive, fresh bait, low placement, legal labels, patient observation. That is the blueprint. If you believe real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe, not for me, for what comes next. Because this is not a channel. This is a quiet movement of people who have decided they're done being sold what they already own. I want to hear from you. Drop your state in the comments. Tell me your worst Yellowjacket month. Tell me whether you would protect a patio, a barn, or a bee yard first. I read every single one, and your answers decide what we cover next. Next week, I'm going to show you what a 1946 county bulletin reveals. I will pair it with one family in rural Tennessee. Together, they show how to keep flies out of a summer kitchen with lime wash, screen angle, and moving air. And the memo from 1946 proves extension agents knew the airflow pattern. They knew it 80 years before the hardware aisle turned it into another electric purchase. You're not going to want to miss that one.